Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome Miss Afroz D'Mello to SheSight Magazine's ShePower Podcast.
Good leader needs to be comfortable not having all the answers, but knowing how to create clarity when there is ambiguity. So my approach in these 2 decades of my work career has been basically to make sure that people understand 3 things. What are we solving? Why does it matter? And what is expected of each of us? Spent a significant part of my career in transformation. And one thing I've learned is that transformation isn't a PowerPoint, a new system, or a project plan. You can implement everything perfectly on paper and you can still fail. And perhaps the most important lesson has been that proximity should not determine visibility. The people sitting closest to the leader shouldn't automatically get the greatest opportunity or recognition. Women need to claim that seat at the table. Don't push somebody forward. Don't, bring somebody ahead and say, oh, you can take the seat. When I became a leader, I kind of understood the corporate secret that nobody knows everything. It's all about being cognizant, being aware of things that are happening around you and adapting. So these are very important things. One has to stay curious to continuously learn throughout their life. Whether you are working, whether you retire from work, learning is something that's not going to stop. Did you build people who are confident enough to make decisions without you? Did you create an environment where people can disagree with you? Did you leave behind capability rather than dependency? And did you make the organization stronger than you found it? Because ultimately, leadership isn't about how many people need you. It's about how many people become better because they work with you. And if I can lead every role having built stronger people, stronger leaders, and a stronger organization, I think that's a legacy worth having.
Welcome to SheSight Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. CV, and here we dive into real stories of women who are making an impact, women who inspire, innovate, and lead change in their fields. SheSight is a platform that amplifies women's voices, celebrates their journeys, and builds a strong community of empowerment and growth. Before I welcome today's podcast guest, I'm so delighted to announce the launch of a newest initiative from SheSight Global, which is called the SheSpeakers.com. Women with extraordinary expertise are everywhere, but on most stages, they remain invisible. She Speakers changes that. A curated platform where brilliant women leaders, entrepreneurs, academics, and changemakers get discovered, listed, and booked for speaking opportunities they deserve. If you organize events, She Speakers is your go-to for voices that truly represent the world. And if you are a woman with a story and a stage to claim, this is your space. Find your speaker, claim your stage. Visit www.shespeakers.com today. Today's guest is Miss Afroz D'Mello. She's a global business transformation and enterprise leader with 2 decades of experience building and scaling high-performing organizations across international markets. She has led complex business transformation, operational excellence, and global delivery initiatives across multiple geographies, helping organizations create sustainable growth through people, process, and innovation. Throughout her career, Afroz has been recognized for driving strategic change, building high-performing teams, and delivering measurable business outcomes. Her leadership has earned her several prestigious recognitions, including the Marsh CEO Award, the ET Inspiring Women Leaders 2025 honor, recognition amongst Fox Story India's 100 Influential Femmes, and the Outstanding Women Leadership Award. Today, Afroz serves as the global head of logistics operations at the CMA CGM Group, leading global operations and transformation across multiple regions. She is passionate about developing future-ready leaders and believes that sustainable business success is built on trust, adaptability, continuous learning, and purposeful leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome Miss Afroz D'Mello to SheSight Magazine's ShePower Podcast. To start off, to kickstart the conversation, I know that you are a leadership expert. You have led leadership transitions and global business transformation and other things. Tell us something about leadership that you want to talk or highlight the most today. We'll start with that one point and then we will come back again to it towards the end.
Thank you, Dr. CV. It's such a pleasure to be on this podcast with you. On your question, I think leadership today has changed significantly. Earlier, leaders were often expected to have answers, And today, with the pace at which businesses are changing, I think a good leader needs to be comfortable not having all the answers, but knowing how to create clarity when there is ambiguity. So, for me, effective leadership comes down to three things:
Mhm.
clarity, trust, and accountability. So, people need to understand where we're going, why we're doing certain things, and they need enough trust and empowerment to make decisions without waiting for their leader every time. And
Mm.
then there needs to be accountability for those outcomes.
Mm.
I've also learned that leadership isn't demonstrated when everything is going well. You really need to see it when something goes wrong. Do you look for someone to blame, or do you create an environment where people can surface the problem quickly and solve it? And that's probably one of the biggest differences between managing work and leading an organization. So, leadership today isn't about having all the answers, it's about creating clarity when the answers aren't very obvious.
Absolutely. That one thing is amazing. We'll come back to that later. So tell us a little about yourself and what shaped you as a leader.
I think for me, most of my work relations begin with trust.
Mm.
And honestly, trust starts with predictability. People
Mm.
don't necessarily need a leader who agrees with them all the time. They need to know that a leader will listen, be fair, say what they mean, and behave very consistently. So for me, what has always been important has been this alignment with my teams. And it doesn't really mean that everybody has to agree. In large organizations, if you wait for complete consensus, you will not have any movement on the work. So, my approach in these 2 decades of my work career has been basically to make sure that people understand three things: what are we solving? Why does it matter? And what is expected of each of us? So,
Mm.
give people the space to disagree before decisions, encourage challenges. But once we've made the decision, we need to align behind it. And I found that people are much more willing to support a decision they didn't personally prefer when they genuinely feel that their perspective was heard. So, to me, I think it's trust, it's alignment, making sure that alignment does not mean that everybody is agreeing. It's about everyone understanding that the decision and moving in the same direction matters the most.
Hi, did you know that you can actually listen to wonderful podcasts from SheSight through the SheSight mobile app? Yes, you heard it right. You can now download the SheSight mobile app on both Apple as well as Android phones. And guess what? Not just the podcast, you also get to read the latest She news across the globe. And more importantly, this is entirely free for you. Go check out and download the app today. So was it your choice, or did you decide much early in your career that I want to be a leader? Or how was that transition? Or I know I've heard so many people tell me I never thought that I will become a leader. I was forced to be in this position because of my whatever. So what is your story? How did you evolve to become a leader?
I don't think I started off as wanting to be a leader.
Mm.
It was always, being good at what I did. It was always about capability. It was always about skills. As I evolved in my career, as I took on roles in the organizations, I realized that, there is much more impact that a person makes at a particular workplace.
Mm.
And it was all about making sure that that impact was positive. People
Mm.
remember your leadership style, people remember the brand that you create around you. And that to me has stuck throughout these 20 years of working across very large multinational companies. I've also had the opportunity to work with multiple geographies, multiple cultures, and that has also somewhere shaped my leadership signature in terms of the ways that I do things.
Mm.
So, to me, I think that has been one of the biggest guiding points to where I stand as a leader. One of the things that I personally am very, particular about is leading with empathy.
Mm.
There are operational leaders, there are transformational leaders. See, processes don't get impacted by transformations. It is people that get impacted. And there has to be that element of understanding their comfort. You can very well, transform an organization. It will look extremely well when you transform it. But 6 months down the line, if people are not aligned to what you've really created,
Mhm.
all of that fails. So it's very important that, you keep people at the forefront of the decisions that you make. And that's what keeps your legacy going. In a way, you create that style of working within your teams, and they understand you better.
That's wonderful. Um, so that's this is actually the gist of leadership, basically leading the people with empathy and understanding them. bringing them towards what are the goals that you want to achieve. Again, I'm just again going back to that point. Which I asked, which is about you, Afroz, as a person. Did you aspire consciously that I want to be that leader? Or was it, as I said, thrust upon you? Because as you said, you were a good performer. Now, here is another aspect to it. I've seen many organizations when they promote people, they promote the individual good performers, but as a leadership expert, that doesn't work like that, right? So for someone in their early careers or mid careers, a woman who is, let's say, a project manager, if she wants to become someone like you, what are the tips that you would like to share?
Very valid points, Dr. CV. You're very correct when you say that when we promote people, we promote them on the basis of what they're doing well.
Mm,
And leadership is not about what you've been doing well in your existing careers. A lot of times at the start of my career, it was about me doing my job well.
mhm,
But when I became a leader, I learned that I cannot be solving all the problems. It
mm,
is the delegation that you do. You cannot sit and solve all the problems. You cannot sit and have answers for all the issues that are going on around you. You have to create people who basically start understanding the basic gist of the business. They start understanding the problems like you understand them. It is a journey. You
mm,
need to coach people when they grow to a certain designation or to a particular level, for them to understand what it takes to be in the position that they've now grown into, not basis what they have been doing in their previous roles.
mm,
So to me, it was never really a conscious thing about, targeting a certain role or a particular destination. It was always about, growing and evolving from what I started doing to what I eventually enjoyed and continued to work on. And it was very organic for me where growth happened. With every growth journey, I had my personal lessons. Not everything was like a bed of roses, very easy that, oh, Afroz is a very good project manager. So now that we hand over this role to her, she's doing exceptionally well. A lot of times I've had to retrospect. I've had to rethink my strategies when I have been dealing with my teams. I've had to understand cultures a lot.
mm,
I handle operations across different countries. A
mm,
lot of times, silence is perceived that, okay, there is an agreement. But in a lot of cultures, silence also means that they're uncomfortable about something and
correct.
they're not okay with moving ahead. So something that works in country A does not necessarily work in country B. So what keeps you going is mainly the consistency with which you're driving a particular decision, or the way you want things to over and above become standard. So
Mm,
the approach fairly remains a little bit on aligned grounds, but how you go,
mm,
or rather, I would say the destination can be fixed, but you need to be very fluid about the route that you take to
correct.
reach the destination. So that I think has been something that I've learned in my leadership journey so far.
Mm. Oh, that's really so powerful analogy when you said that, okay, the destination can be the same, but the journey and the way you do it can be different. I've
Yeah.
read a lot of research on women's leadership style, and I've noticed this pattern that, as you said, the destination could be the same for any gender, but when it comes to the leadership way of doing things, women's leadership has been actually acknowledged and found researched as found to be better. So anyway, so let's come back to organizations right now. Let's talk about the organizations as such, which is undergoing a lot of transformation, at least in the past couple of decades, and I think it's going to be even faster in the coming few years. um,
Yeah.
what do you think effective leadership will look like in that context?
I think for me, effective leadership is basically carrying your teams together and having them pretty much on the same page.
Mm,
And a lot of times, the gender does not matter here. When you are sitting in a meeting room, what you're looking at is talent, capability, and scale in terms of what you're trying to accomplish out of certain strategies in the organization. Of course, a lot of times strategies are predefined that, okay, as an organization, this is what we want to accomplish. There
mm,
is going to be a vision, there is going to be a mission, there is going to be a goal that an organization needs to achieve. In terms of effective leadership, it is about listening to every single voice in your room. It
mm,
is about respecting every single perspective that comes from the room, from your teams to you. But at the same time, when you are taking the final decision, it has to be a very well informed decision. It cannot be a one way decision. And to me, I think effective leadership revolves more around this context of taking your people along and walking on the forefront. It is about leading with example. It is about, walking the talk, because a lot of times we have a very, rosy picture about what a typical organization should look like, a very happy state of mind. But the approach or the road that you take to it, is that feasible? Is that practical? Is my team comfortable with the approach in which I am kind of leading them to that direction? I think all these things make a lot of difference, and they define what an effective leader is.
Mm. That's really so powerful approach. So there is always this balance or the question of profit versus people. And um, unfortunately, we have the world's biggest and smartest organizations also following the path of profit, not exactly the people orientation. Again, that actually brings to the point that we need more women in leadership, because women naturally and generically tend towards focusing more on the people part of it. Okay, now let's get into transformative leadership. You have actually done a lot of change and transformative leadership activities. Tell us how that is different from managing operations, because we know that we need leaders to manage the operations, but we also need transformative leaders out there. So, how do you define that?
See, I wouldn't actually put one above the other, because organizations need both.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
an
Yeah.
operational manager asks, how do we do this better?
Mm.
A transformation leader would ask, should we still be doing this,
Mm.
in this way at all? So
Yeah.
transformation requires you to challenge assumptions that may have worked perfectly well for years. And that's difficult, because processes don't resist change. People do. So I've spent a significant part of my career in transformation. And one thing I've learned is
Mhm.
that transformation isn't a PowerPoint, a new system, or a project plan. You can implement everything perfectly on paper and you can still fail. So
Mm.
real transformation happens when the organization starts working, thinking, and making decisions differently, even after transformation programs have ended. So a project changes a process, transformation changes the way an organization thinks and operates. And it is your operational leadership that kind of keeps that transformation in force, in play, so that it can be an effective change for the future, so that it lands well.
Oh wow. I felt like I'm sitting in an MBA class. Thank you for that. Wonderful. So, again, transformation involves both internal as well as sometimes when you are leading, as you earlier pointed out, when you're working in a global environment across different continents, different culture, different set of people, I think that would be a different experience. So, do you have any personal experience or something that you can share with our audience about how to navigate such a global transformation program or something like that?
I think when we say the word global, we automatically think that everything needs to be uniform.
Mm.
And when you're leading across countries, it's very easy to assume that something works in one geography and it should simply be replicated elsewhere. But
Mm.
it rarely works, that neatly in terms of replication of work patterns. So
Mm.
different cultures, they communicate differently. Some challenge you openly, some won't. Like I said, silence can mean agreement in one culture and discomfort in another. So
Mhm.
even attitudes towards hierarchies and decision making can be completely different in a global environment.
Correct.
So I've learned that to be very consistent about what we are trying to achieve,
Mm.
but flexible about how we get there is probably the right approach to take when you're working in a global environment.
Mm.
The second lesson is that you cannot lead global teams through control. The
Mm.
scale simply makes that impossible. You have to create a strong leadership layer underneath you, give them the context and the decision rights, and then just trust them. And perhaps
Mm.
the most important lesson has been that proximity should not determine visibility. The people
Mm.
sitting closest to the leader shouldn't automatically get the greatest opportunity or recognition. So I would say, like I mentioned earlier, be consistent on the destination, but very flexible on the route that you take.
Wow, that's again a powerful statement, Afroz. I love that one, that aspect when you said proximity should not be the reason for visibility or recognition. That's really powerful. I mean, which is and why? Because that's exactly how many things, many organizations function even now. If someone is good with the boss, obviously they get promotions. Okay, let's talk about that later. Coming back to this global transformation. And when you said bringing together people and different culture, obviously there will be cultural issues and so many other aspects. And more importantly, this is something which you spoke earlier about trust. How do you align trust among teams, which is spread across in different cultures?
See, like I said, it is going to be more about predictability.
Mm,
It is about agreeing to disagree a lot of times. It
mm,
is about, listening to the most junior person sitting in the room and challenging you, but having the maturity to genuinely listen. And I think these are the things that kind of help you shape the decisions that you take as a leader as well. A lot
mm,
of times, there is so much change that is happening around you. There is so much digital disruption happening. There is a technology that just drops, there is a customer expectation that comes, and a lot of times you don't really have a good period of 3 months, 6 months to sit about and think, oh, what is happening around me, what am I going to do about it? So a lot of times leadership here then becomes less about taking all that time. It is about staying really calm when the entire room is panicking, but
mm,
also about making the right decisions at the right time.
mm,
Decisions that are timely also land very well in organizations. Untimely decisions or decisions that do not have context don't generally tend to stick around for a very long time. They will be decisions, they will be organization changes that you would make. But then over a period of time, people realize that, okay, there was no context to it, or it did not really have that factual binding because of which this decision kind of sticks around. And then you rework on the entire strategy, you start redoing the work. It does bring around a lot of change fatigue in the organization. And that's something that you have to be very cognizant about when you are working as a leader.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Um, you know, we are at that juncture, or we are at that cusp of transformation, huge transformation in terms of AI that is disrupting the entire industries. What is your take on that, and how do you think leaders should be preparing for that kind of a scenario when AI is there everywhere?
I think it's the new buzzword.
Yeah.
And a lot of organizations, they talk about innovations, rapid changes, and things like that. But I also think that organizations sometimes create a very false choice between innovation and execution.
Mm-hmm.
Innovation without execution is just an interesting idea, but execution without innovation eventually makes an organization irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
So, challenge for the leaders is deciding what needs to change and what needs to remain stable. You can't transform everything simultaneously. People still have customers to serve, businesses to run while transformation is happening. So, I am a very strong believer in experimentation. Pilot something, learn quickly, measure the outcome, and then scale what works. And particularly with AI right now, I think organizations need to resist adopting technology simply because everybody is talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Start with the business problem.
Yeah.
What are we trying to solve? What becomes faster, better, or fundamentally different because of this technology? So, technology should enable the strategy, it should not become the strategy. So, innovation without execution, I believe, is just an idea. Execution without innovation eventually becomes the irrelevant bit that most organizations end up chasing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, as you rightly said, when it comes to AI and transformation, we still, we read about organizations spending more money on AI and then not getting the return on investment, and they finally decide, okay, fine, let's get back all the people. We don't want to. AI cannot do what the people can do. So, as you rightly said, innovation comes. I mean, innovation is probably the beginning. Execution matters a lot, and sometimes, as you said, we may have to go back to innovating again, iterate the process in order to actually make it completely executionable. um, that actually brings me to the next topic, which is about, again, we are talking about leadership on a wholesome angle. When people when as a leader, there are different levels of leaders. I mean, not just based on the hierarchy in an organization. I think based on how they look at problems and how they are able to solve. Um, what do you think are the role of a senior leader, especially when it comes to developing people, empowering teams, and also when it comes to creating future leader? Because I think many times leaders just probably are working on the current problems in the organizations and forget to develop their future leaders. So, what is your take on that? And as a senior leader, what are the strategies that you are doing?
See, for me, there is an advice that I would like to give leaders in the organization and even to aspiring leaders for that matter. I would probably say that you need to stop preparing for titles and start preparing for responsibilities.
Mm,
Uh, Early in my career, we understandably focused on, the next role, promotion or designation. But,
yeah.
as you become more senior, leadership becomes increasingly less about what you can personally accomplish and more about what happens because you were there. Did you build stronger people? Did you leave behind a better organization?
Mm,
Did people become capable of making decisions without you? And I'd also tell people not to build their careers around being indispensable.
mm,
Being the person who knows everything and solves every problem can make you extremely valuable at one level, but
mm,
it can eventually prevent you from progressing to the next level as well. So your job as a leader is ultimately to bring and build capability, not dependency. And finally, I always say this: stay curious.
mm,
20 years into my career, I don't think I've arrived.
mm.
Business change, technology change, and people change. The moment you believe your experience means that you no longer need to learn is probably the moment your experience kind of starts to become obsolete. So don't build dependency on yourself. Build the capability around you.
Mm, that's true. That's interestingly, there are people who create that dependency on purpose so that the organization cannot fire them. But I think the more you remove yourself from that dependencies, the more opportunities or you go to the next level. And that, as you
Yes.
rightly said, you need to think in a slightly visionary model in order to even comprehend that. Otherwise, probably you would be the expert, you will have everything in your hand, you will never grow beyond that, what the position that you own. um, Another interesting aspect when while you were talking that came to my mind, you have built your career and you achieved, or rather you have probably sat in rooms as, I don't know if this is true, but I'm assuming that you are one or one woman in the entire boardroom, or probably very few in numbers. So I'm pretty sure, even I have faced that situation myself as a leader, where I have been in rooms where I'm the only female. And at that time, of course, there is this heartbeat which is more than normal. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I also understand the importance and the weight of why my presence is important in that room, and how much of voicing of my opinion is important. So, is it the same for you? Have you come across situations where you are able to express yourself and assert yourself as a woman in leadership position? And then I would also like you to touch upon how this conversation around women's leadership it has to transition from the barriers to actual leadership styles itself. So, if you could touch upon both of that, it'll be great.
Actually, you've kind of summed up my journey here as well. Uh, at various roles that I've been in various organizations, I have sat in meeting rooms, boardrooms, and I have had moments where you have that lump in the throat. To me, it has always been that situation where you need to trust yourself. If you don't trust yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, there's no reason why somebody should place their trust in you.
Mm,
And to me, that learning has been something that I carry on even till today. And this feeling is something that will happen to anybody at any level of the organization. It's not something that you face as a new leader who's first time sitting in a meeting room, but at
mm.
every possible
Yeah, true.
level. And probably, for me, if I were to sit with yeah, the CEO of the company in the room, I think I would have a similar feeling. I would have that lump in the throat even then. But the key is preparation. How well do you read the room? A lot of times I also tell my teams, don't tell the audience what you want to tell them. You have to tell them what they want to listen. And I think that is where your message lands effectively. A lot of times, we go preparing so much with PowerPoints, presentations, and it is a one-way conversation because you are just downloading information in terms of what you want them to hear. There is no message, there is no takeaway to it. So,
Yeah.
how do you effectively communicate? You need to know your audience. You need to know who is sitting in that meeting room or that boardroom. What is their agenda? Why are they sitting there? It is very important for women leaders or leaders in general to read the room, understand where this conversation is going. You may start off with an absolute snowball of an error. You may start off with something that you may have thought, and the conversation literally completely changes. And there are questions you did not anticipate. But how quickly are you able to kind of understand what's really going on in the room, adapt to that situation, and then get going with that conversation? I think that is very important for a leader. You need to understand the cues in the room. You need to be very adaptable to the environment around you, and you need to pick up very quickly and then move forward on conversation. So I think this is very important for anybody who kind of aspires to be sitting in a boardroom and trying to understand. Like I've been saying, in a lot of conversations, leadership is not about having answers. It's not about certainty. It's the most uncertain environment that you will be. But how can you keep your calm? And how can you, think through all that chaos that is running around you and still be able to kind of lead with that confidence, with that comfort to your teams that it's okay, we can take care of it. I
Yeah.
think these are the things that matter a lot.
Our members benefit in different ways. It's not just the opportunity to connect and interact with other global powerful women. It's also the opportunity to promote your personal brand, promote your business, and also get visibility, get recognized, get noticed for all the work that you do. Most of our ShePower Club members get featured on our global magazine within 1 month of signing up. Isn't that cool? All right, if you're ready to invest on yourself and join the club of powerful women across the globe, come join me at ShePower Club. Absolutely. One thing which struck me was the aspect of reading the room, which possibly we can even rephrase as the intuition that we probably need to have. And I think women are generally very, very intuitive. If the room is having a bad vibe, we'll be able to understand it much better.
Yes.
Anyway, again, coming back to that question of aspiring women leaders. One is, of course, you need to be well prepared. The other is reading the room. What else? What are the other pointers for them?
Claim the seat at the table. I always say this. You have to observe this, Dr. CV, that when you walk into maybe an auditorium or a meeting room, typically the energy is that women let others go in front of them and claim the seat that probably may be very close to the CEO or somebody like that. They don't kind of walk ahead and claim that seat for themselves. Women need to claim that seat at the table. Don't push somebody forward. Don't, bring somebody ahead and say, oh, you can take the seat. It's okay if that seat's vacant. I very well will need to go and take that. And that's the confidence in which you have to lead. A lot of women, even when accepting awards, will not say thank you. I've worked very hard for this award. They will start thanking everybody in the world for, the award. My husband helped me. My family helped me. My boss helped me. No, but it's your hard work. You have accomplished what you have accomplished. Say thank you. Be proud of your own accomplishments. For once, don't explain. And that is so important. That self-awareness, that self-confidence in women really needs to be there as they kind of, and there is a lot of women in the workforce. I look at the diversity in organizations. Organizations are conscious. They want to have more women in leadership. They have that appetite of coaching, training women. There are so many women leadership development programs. Make the most out of it. take that opportunity, register your name, nominate yourself, attend these sessions, make the most out of these opportunities. Don't stay behind, or don't, undermine your capabilities saying, oh, do you think I will be able to do this? Of course you will be. You have to trust yourself. You have to have that faith in yourself. So these are the things that women really need to be cognizant about. The world is watching them. They're doing a brilliant job. They have been extremely good at providing that homely environment, that uh, family setup that they organize things in. They have a lot of structure in the way they work, they carry themselves. Multitasking is very much associated with women. You will never really hear, oh, there is this man or a guy and he multitasks. Multitasking by default has been now attributed to women. So it's mainly about, being very cognizant about your capabilities, trusting yourself, not second doubting yourself, and going for it. Whatever happens from there.
Absolutely. I think that summarizes or sums up most of the very, crucial leadership lessons, especially for women, the aspects which you covered. That's brilliantly summarized, Afroz. Is there any leadership lessons that you thought would be, maybe 2 or 3 decades back when you started early on in your career, you thought that, oh, this is how leadership is, and then you actually broke that and you understood that no, that's not exactly it. Is there something like that?
Yes, when I look back at when I started and when we would see leaders,
Mm,
often there was this perception that, oh my God, this person is so confident. They're
mm,
so bold in their decision making.
mm,
They are so, well spoken. People love to listen to them. Or they listen with so much intent. There is so much empathy that they show. They know it all. The know it all has been, a perception that I have stuck around with for quite a few years in my initial part of the career.
mm,
When I became a leader, I kind of understood the corporate secret that nobody knows everything. It's basically that.
mm,
It's all about being cognizant, being aware of things that are happening around you, and adapting. Like I said, it is about being really calm. It is about being extremely aware of what your team feels about certain things. It's about intuitions, cues, and things like that that's happening around you.
mm,
Technology, transformation, all these changes are related to tools, systems, processes that we use. The real thing that keeps work going on are the people. So you need to basically invest in your people. And leadership is probably, something that will come to you over a period of time where you start creating, probably the leadership bench under you. It is extremely important for somebody who is at a leadership level to pass that knowledge down. You have to coach your people to understand, to look big picture, rather than them doing what they continue to do and you being constantly in that role of a leader who is controlling and supervising every aspect in the workplace. So I think that shift needs to start happening, where we are more conscious about not just walking into our workplace and doing our jobs and coming home, but also investing in our people, creating leaders for tomorrow. So that's very important for me.
mm. That's again, yeah. I'm just thinking that if only every organization had leaders like you, every organization will be super successful. Someone who thinks like you. Actually, that brings me to this question of how do you keep learning and how do you update yourself? Especially leadership is like a more like a, like, I don't know if you can call it as a soft skill, but it is more of your character or quality. It has to be embedded into that. How do you bring that kind of a knowledge and self-awareness into yourself?
I think one thing that I realized early on in my career is that there is no stopping to learning.
Mm,
Uh, when I started, I felt that certifications were required for me to land a better job, to get a better salary. But over a period of time, I realized that certifications actually become checkboxes.
mm,
Today, when I sit in an interview room, when I'm hiring people, I ask them questions in terms of, okay, what is the certification that you've done? And they will say, okay, I've done maybe like a PMP certification or a Prince 2. And the moment I ask them, a little bit detailed question, or I ask them, okay, tell me how did you manage the scenario? Or how did you manage this risk or an issue? And they start fumbling. you come to know that a lot of times people do certifications as a checkbox. What is very important is when you are learning something, you are able to understand and relate that topic to your workplace. If a certain topic does not relate to your workplace, don't waste your time and your money in getting a certification that's going to be useless over a period of time. It is going to be extremely relevant in those 5 to 6 days of your training while you're doing that certification. The moment your certification is done, if you're not able to apply it, it's no use. So I think it's also about being very aware of where you're investing your time in terms of your learning. It's very important. And second, the learning journey never stops. It never really works that, okay, when I get promoted to a director, that's about it. Now I'm not going to learn anything. I'm just going to sit and I'm just going to, take decisions and run my teams. It's never like that. You have to adapt. You have to constantly keep a watch in terms of what's happening in the market around you for the industry that you're working in. How are your competitors working? What does the market demand? What is the geopolitical scenario at the moment? Where is the impact that it's creating at the moment, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, and how are you keeping yourself up to date at all the time? Technology is going to be something that's going to become available to everyone. It's not going to be limited to people who are working in the IT sector or the technology sector. It has to be, something that everybody has to be comfortable using. So how good are you in terms of upskilling yourself using that technology? How comfortable are you dealing with, the kind of workforce that is coming in? And a lot of times, you hear this very commonly now, that it is the Gen Z that's walking into the workforce. It's a very different type of workforce that's coming in, something that, millennials or boomers are not used to working with. So how do you really adapt, because you have to make sure that your message is understood well across the different kinds of workforce that you have in an organization. So how are you able to really keep up? And as a mom to a Gen Alpha, I would say that, it's interesting because a lot of times I learn a lot from my team members as well as my son at home. So they will tell me something which I've never been aware of. And rather than, being taken aback and feeling, oh, I didn't know about this, I kind of, I'm a little curious. It's about, the curiosity that you put into learn and the humbleness that you need to have to unlearn at the same time. So these are very important things. One has to stay curious to continuously learn throughout their life, whether you are working, whether you retire from work. Learning is something that's not going to stop.
Hi everyone, I'm Shruti, and I've got something truly exciting to share. The Fly High Women Awards 2026 is here, and this year we're taking it to an entirely new level. We're honoring women who build boldly, who innovate, create jobs, uplift their communities, and rise even when the world expects them to stay small. Whether you're a micro business owner, a creative entrepreneur, a tech founder, or driving social impact, there's a category just for you. Nominations are officially open. Don't wait. Share your story. Put your work out there. You never know who you might inspire. Tap the link, explore the categories on our website, and send in your nomination today.
Absolutely. I think that sums up why we are doing this podcast as well, so that more people get avenues to listen to actual experienced people like you and learn from their experiences. And for me, when you said learning, I was also thinking about how I spend my day. I make sure that I listen to some podcast on a daily basis. That's how, even while driving or while,
Yeah.
In the kitchen, doing whatever, but at the same time, you get to, listen to something and learn something new. This is one characteristics which again I have found in most of the successful people. Especially I do a lot of interviews with women, so obviously I can say that most of the really successful women are spending so much of their time and mind into actually learning new things. um, Actually, right now, I think we are almost coming to the end of the conversation, which I know can go even for longer duration. And as we talk about the nuances in leadership, um, maybe why don't we come back to that original question where we spoke about the most important message that you wanted to give as a leader, based on your experience, where you spoke about clarity, trust, and what was the other thing? I wanted you to say that.
Well, it's clarity, trust, and building your teams, building capabilities, and building leaders for tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. So if we are talking about those three angle, especially the clarity and the trust part, that is building, that is probably the journey of a leader, is what I think. What do you think about that?
I think we need to, as leaders, build something that does not need us in order to survive. So I think as leaders, we can become very focused on our own impact, what we delivered, what we transformed, what we achieved. But increasingly, I believe the real test of leadership is what continues after you leave the room. Did you build people who are confident enough to make decisions without you? Did you create an environment where people can disagree with you? Did you leave behind capability rather than dependency? And did you make the organization stronger than you found it? Because ultimately, leadership isn't about how many people need you. It's about how many people become better because they worked with you. And if I can leave every role having built stronger people, stronger leaders, and a stronger organization, I think that's a legacy worth having.
Oh, wow. That's great. Wonderful. That's a great closure for the conversation. Your legacy as well, to leave the organization or the whatever that you are leading better than what you actually founded, and also to lead it, make sure that it is running even without you. What a powerful closing, Afroz. This has been really, really amazing to have this wonderful conversation with you. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who gained a lot of good insights from this conversation, as well as um, see you as a wonderful, inspiring personality, and look up to you to become someday. I want to become someone like Afroz one day. Thank you so much for joining SheSight's ShePower podcast, and I look forward to continuing our conversation in the coming days, or maybe we can actually talk a little more in detail in the after a few months about different aspects of leadership, which I think will be very much valuable for our audience. Thank you once again, Afroz. Would you like to close with some punch dialogues?
I think I've spoken enough, but it was an absolute pleasure, Dr. CV, being today on this podcast. Thank you to SheSight, because it is very important for platforms like these to bring out leaders from the industry that inspire people that really look forward to that guidance. So for me, I think I am really pleased to be on this podcast. And I hope that, the message that we've been trying to convey lands with the people, and really looking forward to having a conversation with you again.
Yeah. Thank you once again, Afroz. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll catch up again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Before you move on to the next video, I have a request to make. If you like this video and this podcast, if you gained some valuable information out of this video, I would request you to click on the subscribe button, as well as follow us on our social media pages. The links are given in our description. Also, do sign up to our website, www.shesightmag.com. We have amazing women stories, as well as various women initiatives that are getting launched in the coming months. I'll see you there.